Question orale. The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the temperature of the 713 debate has risen to a worrying level. We all have a role to play in denouncing hate and misinformation and modeling respectful debate and disagreement with a spirit of love thy neighbor that should be at the forefront. When I hear of the increase in bullying that happened at a school in St. John last week, I am reminded of our shared responsibility to communicate with care and with love. Alors nous allons donc nous adresser à une voix impartiale et responsable. Le défenseur des enfants de la jeunesse a décrit sur 713 c'est un processus incohérent, discriminatoire, shoddy, and won't survive a court challenge. That sounds expensive and time-consuming and like it would have a chilling effect on our province's efforts in critical health recruitment, teacher retention, and economic development. Can the Premier explain how he drafted a policy that won't survive a court challenge?
Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Leader of the Official Opposition for the question. There was a lot of stuff rolled up in there in terms of it reminded me of Justin Trudeau and what he said about love on the weekend, and you know, I guess that's part of where they're going. I read and I heard what the Child and Youth Advocate had to say on its face, and you know, that's his opinion. I don't agree with that. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to defend parents' rights nonstop while we protect our LGBTQ+ community in our schools the same way as we honored the community, the greater community, and the diversity in our society today when we rose the pride flag outside. So I think that, you know, it's important to note that we're not trying to do anything to anybody other than protect parent rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite references that he doesn't think the Child and Youth Advocate is right when he laid out a clear, prima facie discriminatory issue with this policy. He also mentioned that he got advice from other lawyers on this. So can you tell us the legal cost estimated for the court challenge you're walking into?
Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you again, through you, Mr. Speaker, to the official Leader of the Opposition. I'm not aware of any court challenge at this point in time. I'm aware of I am aware of the opinion of the Child and Youth Advocate, who happens to be a lawyer at the same time. Opinions are just that, Mr. Speaker. They're opinions. I think the court needs to rule on a number of things here. I think the court needs to rule on whether or not teachers should be forced to keep things secret from parents of children that are aged 5 to 15. Because when we're looking at that, that's what we're talking about, 5-year-olds. So, okay, 4 to 15. So, this is an extremely important question. And, you know, if it goes to the court, and the courts finally rule on it, then we'll know what parent rights are, we'll know what teachers' obligations are, and we'll get to move forward from this point on.
Accepted opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to clarify, the minister has put forward a proposal, a policy that he is not clear how the courts would rule on, and he is asking the questions to the courts now after the policy has been drafted. Is that what I understand?
The Minister of Justice.
Lawyers and courts and rulings are something that I know a little bit about. And I also know that any lawyer who tells you what a court will do, probably you should get a new lawyer. Because there are facts, there are evidence, there's admissibility, there's argument of cases, there is jurisprudence, there are many factors that go in. And I always find that anybody who would stand up and glibly and off the cuff say, well, this is what a court would do, my advice would be get a new lawyer.
Mr. Speaker, on May 17th, I asked the Premier, quote, given our passion for parents' rights to have a say in the education of their children, Will he be directing the Education Minister to revise Bill 46 to ensure that parents and communities have an actual say in education governance? Friday, le membre de Fundy-les-Îles-Saint-Jean-Ouest a décrit la même contradiction comme ironique. The minister told us at the time that the original thought was removing the decks altogether and removing parent school support committees. With 713, we saw parents from PSSCs consulted, and their strong recommendation to leave Policy 713 as is was ignored. Mr. Premier, why are you centralizing power away from parents and into your hands?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we are trying to find a way to have our educational system improve in a recognized fashion, that we see better results. And Mr. Speaker, when I see some of the actions that go within the Francophone system and the role the AFN may play and all that, and I had discussions about that with the member from Hamilton Dalhousie years ago. There's a model there, Mr. Speaker, in terms of their oversight. Not necessarily the structure, that works for them, but doesn't seem to work for the Anglophone system. So, Mr. Speaker, when I think of the role that the MBTA could play, it could be significant, Mr. Speaker, but it doesn't seem to be one that they choose to play or want to be involved in. So the point of what we're trying to find is a way that our system can continue to improve. And, Mr. Speaker, we have people moving away from our system. Recent stats show that in New Brunswick we have one of the lowest acceptance rates, or concerns, I should say, of parents of where our English system is going. So what does that tell you? Something has to change. If we can get through second reading on this, Mr. Speaker, we will go into economic policy and we'll have all kinds of debate on Bill 46.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I completely agree that something has to change. The minister is referencing the NBTA when he is presenting a bill that removes their ability to grieve properly, and yet he's asking them to take on responsibilities related to governance. He describes a successful Francophone governance system, but has put forward a bill that changes the Anglophone governance system further away from the Francophone system. There was a different governance model presented and briefed to this cabinet and caucus. What happened to that original governance model?
Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Leader of the Official Opposition for the question. When I first came into the department, there was a bill that talked about removing district education councils altogether, talking about creating a family of schools where there would be some representation from that family of schools, talked about some kind of provincial boards. It seemed very convoluted to end up in the same place, where the goal of that education proposal during that time was to remove superintendents from the control of the district education councils, actually to remove the district education councils altogether and have them report to the department. Which, part of this, if we could get this through second reading, then we could get to economic policy and we could talk about all the fine points in the bill. And I would encourage the members opposite, let's do that. Thank you.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Le Premier ministre, his power grab in education has created chaos for teachers and students and parents and the inclusion community. La loi sur l'éducation, tout comme la politique 713 révisée, a été précipitée. We've seen Education Act changes rushed faster than this government can process a property tax appeal. We've seen Education Act changes rushed faster than this province can process a residential tenancies tribunal rate hike application. We've seen education changes that have moved faster than the province can process a Medicare application. Ce projet de loi a été élaboré de la hâte. Pourquoi cette précipitation? The Premier doesn't care. This amounts to an attack on democracy, and the Premier is pushing his agenda through at all costs. Why the rush?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I would suggest the Leader of the Opposition is not keeping up, because the other points she raised are moving very quickly. The one I'll reference, particularly on the Medicare and the reference of how quickly they're down now, I think, a week or 2 weeks, but certainly well under 30 days. So, Mr. Speaker, that's better than 6 months or wherever it was before. So maybe you should keep track of what's being improved and what's going on. But, Mr. Speaker, this has been on the docket for a long time on the whole structure. It was on the docket before, when we first came in 2018, again in 2020, and then in 2022, kind of the recognition, or 21, nothing was happening, Mr. Speaker. There was no real plan to fix the system and have it actually perform in a way that would get results for kids. So how long do we let that go? And then it turned into another explosive issue, Mr. Speaker. So rather than have a good, open discussion on the challenges we have, we turn it into an explosive media event. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to get into economic policy and have the very frank discussion on the real issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.